What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Dispensary Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Kwan, the founder of Cannabud Marketing. We're the #1 marketing agency for dispensaries, both in Canada and the United States. And I'm joined here by Rahim, the founder, the president of Hybrid Pharm. He's got some really cool insights on the medical side of the cannabis industry, and really excited to have him on. So welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Brandon. This is awesome.
All right, so let's dive into it. So let's just start with the basic question. Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what you got going on at Hybrid Pharm.
Sounds good. My name is Rahim. I am a pharmacist by trade. I went to school in the U.S. I graduated from Massachusetts College of Pharmacy in Boston in 2009. Honestly, I grew up in a pharmacy. My dad owned like 3-4 pharmacies in the surrounding Ottawa area, and then 2 in North Bay. So I was always in there when I was as early as like 10 years old, working beside my dad. So that's kind of what kind of drove me into pharmacy. And he's like, yeah, just go, you should go to get your pharmacy degree. And then when you're done, you can come take over the business. And, that's how I thought my life was going to go. But obviously, clearly life has different plans. And when I moved back from pharmacy school, he ended up having cancer. He had stage 4 cancer. So that's kind of where I started my cannabis journey too, with my parents and with the greater health community. And I started him on oils, helping him with his pain management, his nausea, vomiting, for chemotherapy, helped him eat a little bit better. So it was from there that I kind of came up with this idea of Hybrid Pharm. And like I knew people like my dad in the same situation who have never been exposed to cannabis, don't have that background knowledge. They're going to need an outlet to be able to come to and be like, look, I have questions about cannabis. I have questions about medicine. I have questions about interactions and drugs and everything. So, and I thought, this is a good opportunity to use my pharmaceutical knowledge, my degree here, my ability to, dispense narcotic medications and integrate it with a cannabis-based model. And even further from that, a emerging therapies-based model. And that's where Hybrid Pharm kind of grew.
Right. Awesome. So I'm curious as to, a lot of people skim over like the initial starting steps. And I just kind of want to have this conversation for a lot of people like, hey, this medical kind of business model, and we'll touch into like what that actually entails a little bit later. But like, okay, so boom, you're in pharmacy. You're like, hey, I see a need in the market, right? Something that hits, close to home kind of thing. And you want to start this, right? What did that start actually look like? Did you have an existing network that you can kind of leverage? Did you bootstrap this all by yourself? Did you have some co-founders and partners that you had on that kind of went in? Like, how did this look for anyone who like actually wants to go in, and what's the next step for them to take from?
Well, I did the bold thing. I started Greenfield. So Greenfield Pharmacy is like, you're not attached to doctor's offices. You're not attached to a clinic. You're not attached to a hospital. You're not even attached to like a big name banner, right? I went completely independent, started up I found a location that I found was obviously geared towards a either higher income, but also greener lifestyle. So right. If you look around the neighborhood of Westboro and in Ottawa, you see a lot of like, unique coffee shops, yoga, and Lululemon, and there's like a lot of this green mentality, right? So you think like in that scope of things, that's where you'd want to launch this kind of very new model, because people are going to be very adaptive to it. And people are searching for these type of new treatments, new therapies, alternative therapies. Right. I mean, if you walk around here, you'll see like chiropractors, you'll see naturopath clinics, you'll see everything, right? So it's one of those where that's how that started, right? But I mean, honestly, if someone's coming into the market now, I would be like, start with a clinic, start with some sort of foundational place where you can attract consumers and attract patients and have that patient traffic flow.
So like a physical location is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So bring in physical location, bring in some people, build up that I guess that client list or that patient list, right? Yeah. And then maybe from there expand the services and products that you offer, or would you just say, hey, I want to do everything at once, or would you try and appeal to maybe a specific niche, like you said, maybe start with the oils and say, hey, this has a service for a specific subset of people. Let's get the system operating and then move on. Or is it more so we want to capture as many people as possible, so let's do all these different things?
I mean, what I'm finding now, even like, so when I first started this is 2018, I launched right before, actually July 2018. So right before recreational legalization started, before the onset of in October, before all the rec stores started to come about. And what I've noticed is that there's like really a couple main categories of, you know, medicine that people are searching out for when using cannabis, right? Anxiety, pain, sleep. So it kind of built my front store that way too, right? I don't have every single vitamin offering that you find at, like, you know, Loblaws or Shoppers or, you know, any of the big chain pharmacies. It is very specific. It is very specific to location. It's very specific to disease state as well. So that's what makes it really unique, in that, you know, you're not overwhelmed by a bombardment of different products. You're very much, you know, kind of focused in on certain ailments.
So you essentially focus on the problem, like you said, the anxiety, the sleep, or whatever it is, right? Maybe the pain relief sort of thing. Have products for that, and then use that as a selling point versus saying, "Hey, I have product A." Instead, you know, is that what you're kind of getting at?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, like, we started as a clinic only, right? So we had a nurse practitioner, MD, in our physical location, seeing patients. And then once they get the prescription, then we would send it off to a licensed producer at the time. All in the meantime, we were applying for our own LP license, so we could, you know, actually physically hold product here at the store and then distribute. But that's why it started there, and then it just obviously unfolded over time to where we are today.
Yeah. So what are you finding the biggest differences between the medical side and the recreational side right now?
It's right now, it's intention, right? That's like my main reason. Like, what's the difference between medical versus rec is intention, what you're using it for. And most of these patients that are coming in, I mean, I'll tell you, my demographic is 55 plus, and they're using multiple medications, and they're either, you know, failing conventional therapy. They're not, you know, doing well. They're having side effects. They're concerned about, you know, potential habitation, addiction with some of these medications. So they're looking for alternative solutions. And, you know, we're here to provide that oversight, that medical knowledge that can't be done within the recreational realms, or even take it a little bit further, even to the licensed producers, because again, what they function as manufacturers. They're not caregivers. And, you know, I get this question a lot, and I have this, you know, a lot of these complaints from patients saying that, like, you know, I was told to get a different product directly from the call center and, you know, licensed producer. And to me, that's like worrisome, because now you can fall into the trap of like drug interactions, you know, disease state interactions. Patients that ended up getting side effects, calling ambulances, going to the hospital unnecessarily. And all these things could be avoided if, you know, if we had a sit down and had a consultation, had a little bit of insight into what this patient was using or what they were taking, and, you know, direct them in an appropriate manner.
Right. So what's happening right now is, like, to boil it down, something simple is just like people who aren't qualified to give specific advice for specific ailments are giving advice, and then that could potentially create a domino effect where it affects what you're doing, because people are getting upset from other recommendations, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, and I don't think it's not the patient's fault, because what's happening now in this entire industry across this country is that we have a flurry of recreational outlets. There's more than there even are consumers. I want to say. I mean, I actually just did a talk about this at one of my lectures, and there's like 1,500 plus recreational stores in Ontario, where there's only about 660 or so LCBOs. So I mean, you're almost like doubling that number for a product that most people don't know how to use. Most of them are cannabis naive. I mean, we've essentially just launched cannabis into the stratosphere, and on a very cannabis naive population, and we expect people not to have questions and you know, seek advice. It's not feasible, right? And even if you're looking at the numbers too, like, you look at the medical registrations on Health Canada website from like 2019 to now to present, they've gone down by like 30% year by year. And the number of, like, and I actually did this is part of my lecture, the number of oils that people are using from 2019 to present increased by 50% in the medical market, increased by 540% in the recreational market, which obviously shows you that, like, most people are not using the medical market anymore. They have barriers to entry. You don't want to get a prescription. They don't want to go through that whole process. They don't want to wait a week to get delivered to your door. They're walking into the nearest site possible, finding whatever thinks they help them on the internet, and they go and purchase that. And so there is a huge gap and a huge disconnect right there. And that's what, honestly, that's a big problem we are trying to solve with our model here.
So you're finding a lot of people are doing the whole self-medication, do-it-yourself type thing, looking on the internet, WebMD saying, hey, you should try this for this issue. And then again, creating a wrong kind of environment for themselves, creating like a bunch of problems down the line, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So on that end, what are you, maybe not you personally, but how is Hybrid Pharm, aside from obviously having your typical stuff, talking the retail stores up and stuff like that, what are your plans to try and, I guess, help reduce this problem, I guess, from an education standpoint?
Yeah, like we're always lending a hand. Like, I mean, we have, we talk to like myself, like my co-founder Angelo, out on the road, talking to a lot of different bud tenders, going to the businesses, like just letting them know that, hey, we're here, we're in Ottawa, we exist. For anyone that has questions about medical, like seek us out, because we're here to help. And at the end of the day, it's not just, we're not just slanging weed, like we're slanging medicine, right? That's at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? And if we're going to call cannabis a medicine, if we see how it's important it's been in many patients' lives, we've seen how many, like, look at the seizure trials, like, my God, if anyone actually wants to really get into cannabis as a medicine, look at the seizure trials, look how like effective it has been for some of these seizure disorders. And my worry is that why, if we did this, we legalized it because of this reason,
right?
Then why do we find it okay for that patient or that mother to go to a rec store and buy that CBD oil for that patient?
Right.
Because that's what's happening now. As much as we want to say, oh, there's a medical side, but no. Like,
yeah. So I don't want to get into the conspiracy side of things, but there's a whole thing, big pharma, you got cannabis and like eating into like the drugs and stuff that they can sell, right? Are you finding this to be the case, like from just a personal level?
Not really, no. I mean, again, like a big opportunity that I see here is also like streamlining patients, medications that they're using.
Right.
So like when we started this back in 2018, I never realized how much, patients ended up coming off of certain medications.
Right.
If there's a big pharma conspiracy to block, cannabis becoming sure, whatever. I mean, like, I don't know any more proof, but it can have, dose reduction strategies. Like we've seen patients come off of some of their hypnotics and, benzodiazepines that they use for sleep management or anxiety, panic attack. We've seen them come off of some pain management medications too. So it is a way to help patients, streamline their medications, make it, better choices, alternate choices that may be more suited to their, their diagnosis and their condition.
Right. So it sounds like you're doing a lot of good for a lot of people, but obviously you're only in Ottawa right now. So what are your plans to essentially expand and kind of like just, I guess, do better for more?
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking to a bunch of pharmacists across the country.
Right.
We're trying to, instill a kind of a medical retail model within their pharmacy realms, and just kind of get this, molecule into the hands of pharmacists. If we look at countries around the world, we're looking at like Chile, we're looking at Uruguay, looking at a lot of countries in Europe, they're all going through a pharmacy distribution model. And I think it's time Canada needs to adapt to that, as we are seeing a lot of big uptake in the medical side. So.
Yeah, like, I think we spoke about this before. Like, I don't know if what we're doing in Canada, right, is kind of pushing that envelope on the innovation level, right? I think at this point, like, again, to boil it down basics, it's like, okay, how can Canada make the most amount of money by taxing this product, right? But, we have the benefit of having it being legal in Canada, not like in the States where it's like on a state by state basis, where I do think there's a lot of resources we can pour into kind of doing things like this, to your point, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, Canada we could have been the exporter of a lot right now. I mean, being legal for so long, even like on the medical side, we've been legal since 2001. We've had the onset of, licensed producers since like 2013. And since that time, what have we been doing? Like, I feel like it's been very, dump and pump, and we're just making products that are more geared towards recreational, more geared toward a lifestyle versus, creating patented products. Like look at GW Pharmaceuticals.
Right.
They've been doing this in the UK for so long. They just got bought out for like $750 million. Why? Where's Canada's innovation?
Right. Right.
That's big, like,
what
there's
are those
so
things?
much about this plant that we don't know. And
Yeah.
I think we have the brilliant opportunity that it's legal here.
Yeah.
It's a recognized industry, and yet I think we're still in the very nascent stages of just immaturity, right? We're just let's pump a bunch of flower out and let's get high THC, let's get all these concentrates and dabs, and let's have fun. But you know what? There's a real drug development side here that we're really missing out. And I think a lot of these countries around the world that are coming online and coming into the medical cannabis realm could use a lot of this knowledge that we've had a head start on. And I think we're just falling apart.
Right. Well, the knowledge we're supposed to have a head start on. So we'll see on that. But so I guess transitioning into kind of like, your retail model and stuff like this, and this is what we spoke about. My experience in the recreational space in terms from a marketing standpoint is like, hey, how do we generate as many sales as possible, right? But I think obviously on your side, it's on the educational side, helping people. But we spoke about like your KPIs being more so medical patient signups and stuff like that. So would you be able to just kind of elaborate, talk about that and how that works specifically for you guys?
Yeah, like usually, I mean, what we try to focus on, especially now that we're putting a little bit of, funds into marketing, is how do we reach patients in certain demographics, in certain, either medical demographics or age demographics. How do we get them to sign up for a consultation? And then from there, it's about retention, right? Like my goal is obviously as a pharmacist, it's easier if you have all your medications in one place.
Right.
I don't want you coming here just buying your cannabis for me and then going off to your other places, because I won't be able to keep track of that. Yeah. And a lot of the patients end up having questions about like, how do I get off this medication? How do I get off my benzodiazepine like lorazepam? How do I do that? Okay, well, this is something we can help with, but it's difficult to do that if you're at 3 different pharmacies, going to 3 different doctors, and like you need to streamline your life and need to streamline these processes.
Yeah,
that's kind of what we want to help with, and that's a big point of like a KPI, as in how we're measuring how many patients are coming through our doors, how many are getting consultations, how many are retaining the patient, are they transferring their prescriptions in. How is that?
So your funnel essentially comes down to, okay, general awareness, right? They know you exist, sort of thing. And then they go first into a consultation. And then from that consultation, it goes into prescription, or how does that process from consultation to actually becoming a patient like?
The consultation would be a discussion with our nurse practitioner and or doctor to get a prescription for medical cannabis. And then from there, the pharmacist ends up, like myself, will end up talking with the patient after, discussing their goals, discussing their different medications, looking at drug interactions, creating like a treatment plan for them so they can help, follow along with what their goals are. And then from there, it's mainly about maintenance, so we get calls every single day. Hey, I have this problem. Oh, I just started this new medication. Oh, I have a side effect. Like these are things we can easily mitigate with a simple phone call or simple accessibility at a retail store.
Right. And for the most part, like I'm sure you can bucket like most problems, like you said, sleep, pain, anxiety, and stuff like that. Are those the 3 main things that you're finding about what people are coming to, or is it also that subset of, hey, I'm on this medication, I have this side effect, sort of thing, right?
Well, it's mainly like, oh, I have this issue, I have like chronic insomnia, I have anxiety, I have pain, I don't want to use pharmaceuticals, how can you suggest an alternative?
Right.
Or it's, I bought this at the rec store, I'm not sure how to use it, can you help me, guide me through that? Don't get me wrong, we do get obviously more severe cases, the therapies, the cancers, like the seizure disorders, things like that. But on the most part, in the general community, I think the 3 main things people are always asking about: anxiety, pain, sleep. And a lot of patients are concerned about the current medications they're using and the longevity of how long can I actually sustain on these medications for? Is it actually helping my condition? So these are kind of things we got to work through, especially on the medical side, is setting expectations and setting like kind of parameters of like, is this successful or not? Because again, some patients are not even successful in cannabis at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you have to essentially just test to see if it works, right? You know, you have the same thing in marketing. You have best practices of what generally works over the just broad overview for most people. But, you know, you have to try different dosages, different strains, like whatever it is to try and make it work, right?
Yeah.
Are you finding that patients are able to kind of wean off the dosage as they like, so let's just say you're on, I don't know, a couple of medications, like pharmaceutical medications and medicines and stuff like that. They switch to the cannabis side. Are they able to wean off on the concentrations of the dosages of that? Or are you finding like, what works, stay with it, don't touch it kind of thing?
Depends. It depends, but yes, like on the general.
Obviously, generally speaking, there's going to be use cases. And
I find so we actually just published a study. It's in the Canadian Pharmacist Journal, and it was about cannabis and insomnia.
Right.
And we had about, I believe it was about 30% of patients ended up having to reduce or stop completely their sleep medication because they found either CBD and or THC was effective for their treatment.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's
yeah. So like, I mean, you know, people say like, you know, cannabis is not a gateway, it's an exit. Right. I mean, there is some truth to that. Obviously, a lot more studies and like larger case cohorts need to be done, but it's something that we shouldn't be turning our back to because there's not enough studies. I absolutely hate when people say that. I hate when doctors say that. I hate when any practitioner or healthcare provider says there's not enough studies. Well, you know, every single drug didn't have studies at one point in time. They all had to get it at some point, right?
Exactly.
And I think this is where we need to, you try to provide your best, you know, evidence-based foot and provide the most sound advice to these patients. And obviously you work with the healthcare teams, you work with their doctors to help kind of strategize and manage their best opportunities, their best medications.
Right. And yeah, I find it's like, it's all about intentions, right?
Yeah.
And obviously you're coming from a place where, how can I help this person out the best, right? And you might not be right all the time, but the intention is helping the person out, right? Whereas, as you mentioned on the recreational side or the manufacturer side, it's like, hey, maybe I just know this person and I'm getting a kickback from that person, or maybe this is a higher profit margin product for me, or hey, I need to move this product off the shelf and, you know, like I want to get rid of it, right? I'm not saying all people are bad like that, but we know that both yourself and, you know, hopefully everyone else in the medical pharmacy side has that intention of how can we help this person out the best? And then obviously you're going to come out with studies like, hey, this is what works. And, you know, same thing, right? The analogy and same thing in the marketing world, right? I have case studies of what I've done for clients that have helped them out on the marketing side. I'm going to try my best to help you out with that stuff. It may or may not work, but my intention is to help you out best as possible. And I think that's the same kind of strategy that you guys are employing. And, you know, I think it's working well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I guess on the barrier to entry side, so I have my hypothesis is that like, you know, medical now is not necessarily like a constraint for building a business in terms of like what people can or cannot do. Because like you said, seems like millions and millions of recreational pop-ups coming up, but you have the pharmacy side where you exactly have a niche, you know who you're helping, you have a key demographic, and then you have services and stuff that you're offering to help those people. Right. So do you have, you know, does that make sense on your end? Are you finding it, I wouldn't necessarily say easier, but are you finding that, you know, you can now leverage medical being a benefit versus a constraint on your side of things?
Yes. I mean, I think a lot of our growth has become from organic, from you know, word of mouth, friends, acquaintances, relatives, telling them, oh, go see Hybrid Pharm. They know what they're talking about. Even on the medical side with, you know, connecting with healthcare practitioners like doctors and nurse practitioners in the community, they have also reached out and we have reached out to them, letting them know like we're here to help. And I think that's been a big opportunity and a big benefit essentially is that we, you know, as much as we have not really put that much money into marketing, it's been a steady flow thus far. And I think a little bit of the constraints and I find the barriers to entry sometimes it's frustrating too when people come in and be like, hey, do you have a topical for CBD or THC? I'm like, I do, but you need a prescription. And then from there, their eyes just go, oh, I don't want to do that. I want to go to my doctor. My doctor's inaccessible. Yeah. You know, like the excuses start coming out. And then they're like, okay, I'm going to go down the street.
Right.
And then they go down to the street to get whatever they need to get.
Yeah.
So it's you have to kind of really deal with a little bit of those, kind of constraints on the medical side.
Yeah.
There are some like written legislations that should be and need to be changed. One of them being taxes. I think Canada's overtaxing this, and they're just taxing everyone back right into the, the illicit market, which again was one of their main plans and the main reasons of existence of legalization is let's get rid of the illicit market and let's regulate the supply and control it and see that. But it's I feel like with a medical model like this, with pharmacist dispensing, it can eventually turn into a place where patients don't have to pay taxes because they're using this for a verified medical purpose.
Right. So it's harder to maybe get patients coming in through the door, but once they come in, they are stickier for the most part, right?
Yeah.
You know them, friends, family. That's where the word of mouth comes around, I'm sure, right? It's like, hey, John, you had this issue lingering. You seem to be all good now. How did it work? They're like, oh, these guys at Hybrid Pharm kind of helped out, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's probably the benefit for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really well. I guess we're blessed in that sense that people are talking about us in a good light. So it's getting a lot of referrals that way.
Nice. So in terms of your marketing mix, you say you don't do a lot of marketing and it seems like the word of mouth is really churning, but what have you done so far in terms of marketing and I guess getting patients through the door? Even when you just first started out, how did you get to where you are at this point?
A lot of knocking on doors, like started with the doctors, handing out our information packages, letting them know that we're here in Westboro, reach out if you have any questions. Again, like Angelo has been really good at going to a lot of the recreational stores and, making connections with them, letting them know again, we're here, we exist, we can help your patients out. And, bless the bartenders, bless those guys, because again, a lot of them are there also for the exact same reasons. They're there to help out. They're there to get the best intention of their client coming through that door. A lot of them, most of them are not malicious, right? Like they're not trying to, here's a product, go sell it and have fun. A lot of them do have the best intention of like, okay, I want you to get, streamlined approach here. You're asking medical questions. It's very pointed that you're obviously asking these questions. Go talk to them.
Yeah, no, they definitely are pretty good. I mean, if you look at a lot of Google reviews and you look at both, mostly on the recreational side, it's like, yeah, John helped me out with this product, or John remembered it was my birthday, or you know what I mean? And
yeah.
It seems like, and it's good that they're doing a good job because that is the first impression that a lot of people get, especially when first stepping into this space. Because like a lot of people legalize, okay, first time buyers, like what is going on? I have there's so many things going on. What's up? And I find if you have really good bartenders, they can help on the educational side of things. At least, again, the intention is there, right? To the best of their ability, they think that if I say this will help out, right? So I'm happy to see that for the most part, and it's good that you're also benefiting from that as well.
For sure.
So word of mouth, knocking on doors, doctors and that stuff. Are you doing anything in the online space in terms of marketing? And
we started, Google's AdWords and obviously SEO, but not we've had barriers again, like I think most cannabis industry folk, that we got blocked because of what we represent. And even though we're a pharmacy, like I'll give you a great example. We tried to post and push a Facebook ad through, and this is about a study that we were conducting, and it was about like autism and cannabis. So we were trying to put that out to the market and be like, come see us if you want to participate in a study. This is actually being, it's ethical review board approved by the CHIO hospital. So it was all, way above board, way legit. And we still got blocked saying that you can't talk about these things. I'm like, well, how, I feel like it's almost on social media. It's like you have this amazing platform, you have the reach, and I feel like it's almost like your ethical responsibility to be able to put out proper information. Obviously that's not happening, but that was a barrier that we obviously had to overcome. And it's like, all right, I guess we can't really do too much online with being a pharmacy that sells cannabis. So we have to kind of figure out different ways. We have to kind of work around those barriers.
Yeah. So what did you end up doing? Were you able to push that through at all, or was it just
No, it was more like posting from our various like independent um profiles and going into like those subgroups and categories and just
yeah?
kind of spreading the knowledge like that way.
So just putting it in like the Facebook groups or whatever it is and getting that
Even
out.
our Instagram got taken down too.
I was gonna ask. I was like, all right, were you? Because you would
Yeah.
hope, at least on the medical side of things, because I've spoken to like it must be like about 75% of people that I've of dispensaries that I've spoken to, they've had their account banned, suspended, or at least shut down, and then they eventually were able to get it back for whatever reason. And it seems
Yeah.
like there's a whole bunch of issues. So that's the same for you?
Oh my God, I know. It blew my mind too. I'm like, we weren't even posting even any like flower shots or nug shots or
Right.
anything, right? Like it was obviously we're talking cannabis, we're talking medical, but
Of course.
that's it. And then we have vitamins and like, natural health products that we sell over the counter, things like that. And we still got shut down. And I
Yeah.
was like, this is getting pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. Have you done anything on the direct mail side of things? Like you still need to be age gated, right?
No,
No. So
not
are you able to run any direct mail marketing campaigns like postage and stuff like that, or have you tried that?
Yeah, we did try that. We did do a couple through like Canada Post, within like I think it was like a 2 to 3 kilometer vicinity of our store. And
Nice.
this was mainly actually targeting patients about like vaccinations as well as like COVID testing and
Right.
rapid antigen test kits, stuff like that, because we're like, hey, we're kind of a new pharmacy here in your neighborhood. Book your appointment online.
Yeah.
So we did that. It's I would say it's somewhat successful. I mean,
Yeah.
it brought more awareness that we're not just a cannabis place. We're also
Pharmacy.
like a pharmacy.
Yeah.
So that drove in traffic.
So I guess on the overall marketing standpoint right now, you wouldn't say you're necessarily investing too much time slash resources into direct kind of marketing, but more so like in the services that you offer. So then your services get better, word of mouth gets better. And that is the main driver of how you're growing your business right now, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
It's about surrounding services
Right.
that we're trying to implement and kind of integrate this new brand, this new genre of pharmacy into
Right.
the community.
And you mentioned you were trying to open up more locations as well. Was that part of your game plan? So where are
Yep.
you looking to expand?
Um, so we have a couple going up in like Saskatchewan, BC, Atlantic Canada. So yeah, we are looking to put to one of these stores in every province across the country.
Wow, nice. So if
That's the starting point, right?
anyone's
But
looking for a pharmacy, hybrid farm, you
that's
know where
it.
to go. What's the timeline for that?
The next 6 months.
Oh, so soon. So not even okay. All right, that's awesome. So like yeah, so I'm just very curious again, like on the marketing side of things. So you mentioned Angelo was the go-to guy to kind of knock on the doors, kind of do the cold introductions and stuff like that. So is your plan upon opening up for these new locations to have an Angelo equivalent to then do all these different things and then essentially use that word of mouth to continue going? Or do you plan on doing something else to kind of just boost your awareness at the start and then
Yeah.
you can kind of like do that? Like what is the general game plan on that side of things?
Both. I mean, generally, like once we have those established locations, like we will be investing heavily into marketing and starting to get, kind of our brand and our image and our the communications, how what that brand represents
Right,
to really go to mass market
right,
and just really start attracting, new patients, new faces to essentially a new subset of what a pharmacy can be and what it should be.
right, right. And I would assume you don't really need to do this, but on the loyalty side of things is, what I talk about for a lot of the recreational spaces, it's like, how do you get your customers to come back over and over again, right?
Yeah.
Because for them, it's super easy to just, like, hey, I had a bad experience, I had bad product, and then kind of move. But with you guys, you have the, I guess, the luxury to kind of have the prescription, have the patient kind of with you for the long haul. So are you leveraging kind of like SMS and email marketing at all? Like maybe from an educational standpoint, you're saying, hey, we released this study, come check it out. Like, are you doing any of that, or is it just
Email, we're starting to. We're
yeah,
starting to definitely use email. Loyalty eventually we'll get into as we again expand our footprint.
right?
Again, we're like one small store in Ottawa that's
Yeah, yeah,
kind of, I'd say still we're always in startup mode, right? But I think that will become a big part of the platform
Right.
as we expand. I do like the email marketing,
Yeah.
especially because I'll give you an example. We did one for our rapid antigen test kits when they first
Right.
started coming into the community. We blasted it out to like all of our patients that signed up with us over the course of this pandemic and since our inception. So we blasted that out. Everyone's like really receptive to that. They're like, "Oh, thank you so much for letting us know." And
Oh,
everyone
nice.
started to come in, pick up their test kits, like things like that. So it has been successful. I think that's something that we'll stick with in the long run, especially like blasting out little snippets of like what's coming up or
Yes.
what's new in the community, some education about surrounding emerging therapies, the new studies we publish. So,
Right.
yeah.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Because I found that for marketing campaigns, like a lot of people look at the open rates because, like, again, on the rec side, it's like, hey, we have this new product, get it for what I don't know, 20% off, blah, blah, blah. But if you have people responding to your emails and they know that it's a newsletter, it's almost magical because like they're interacting directly with this thing and they know it's not customized. Like, hey, insert name, here's all these things. So again, like I think the play of the educational intention of what they have going on, because they know it's not just like, hey, how can this company just make the most amount of money for me, right? Because there's a sale. It's like, hey, they have this really cool thing that actually applies to what's going on right now, right? And again, I think you guys are absolutely crushing it right now. And yeah, just continually building that email asset is also very, very important, right? Even if you're not using the emails right now, they at least interacted with your brand at some point so that you got their email. And I think that's really, really key.
Yeah. It was actually very eye opening when we launched a couple of the emails. I was like, I didn't realize how receptive it would have been.
Right.
But again, like maybe we had an advantage of like giving away free rapid antigen test kits, which was like the hottest item of like the season, right?
It was. It was.
But yeah, we'll see how that continues down our path.
Well, you said your main demographic in terms of age was 55 plus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like a lot of those people in those demographics, like email is still kind of their main thing, right?
Yeah.
Even like not direct mail in the sense of like, hey, I have this product, here's what's going on, but in the sense of like the newsletter equivalent of direct mail, right? So I don't know if there's a way you can kind of isolate the different addresses and say, hey, these are our patients, like let's send them a physical piece and thing.
Yeah, I think that demographic still likes physical touch. They like they like coupons in the mail, they like flyers, right? Like they're receptive to that.
Exactly. Well, there's a reason why companies still do to this day, right? We just can't ignore that like offline advertising still is like a really big piece of what's going on, right?
Yeah. That could be a barrier too for a lot of patients is the online aspect. And that's again reason probably why a lot of patients are not choosing to use the medical stream is because it's only done online traditionally. And
really,
yeah, like for licensed producers, like you have to do everything online or via phone. So like a lot of them don't have that know-how capability. Some of them don't have computers. Like again, they're relying on their kids or their grandkids to help them kind of navigate these waters. And we get that here even at the pharmacy. Like a lot of like boomers, you know what I mean? Like a lot of them are helping them out or facilitating the consultations. Like they're sitting in with them, helping them with their medication management. So
nice. Okay, cool. So how you said you mentioned you started 2018, right? How have you seen the landscape change just in general, just from your perspective? What are the biggest things that you've seen for yourself?
I think it's growing. Very honestly, it's growing pretty rapidly.
Right.
There's more and more people in that demographic range, in that 65 plus range, that are asking questions, that are more curious about it, that are more open to it, and they're more open to having cannabis conversations.
Right.
I think that's a great thing. I think we're starting to get educated about it. It's still very new. Like, I mean, we're still talking about CBD and THC. I mean, as the markets even globally are starting to progress into different cannabinoids, progress into different products, but we're still in that nascent phase where it's very new and people need to start to kind of accept that this is now in medicine, this is now part of our life.
Right.
So I think that's been definitely changing over the course of even the past 3 years. I mean, if you even look at the landscape, it's changed dramatically.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of licensed producers that have shut down, they've folded, a lot of medical LPs that have kind of either switched their gears and went right to rec, or they've shut down completely. A lot of them have given up their direct to consumer sales, so they're only selling to third parties. So that is also ever shifting, and this is what also kind of throws a lot of patients off.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I'm so confused. I don't know what's going on in the industry. Like, it used to be registered there, but now I'm here. Like, everyone's confused. Like,
Well, that's
so
the thing, right? Like, growing, I think a lot of people think, yeah, like it's obviously a good thing, but with growth comes a lot of change, right? Like
yeah,
businesses going out of business, businesses eating other businesses, like, businesses just pivoting and doing something different. But when you're looking at the consumer level, especially on the medical side, when you have that demographic that you do serve, and things just like change just like this, it's like, whoa, 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 whoa.
yeah,
I spent like, a full day talking with this person. Next thing you know, their phone line's not there, or saying I have to call this other person or go straight to online, right?
yeah.
So there sounds like there are some growing pains for sure on that sort of thing, right?
Oh yeah.
Are you finding people are still trying to stay like secretive about their cannabis related consumption?
Yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
it's sometimes like patients choose to come in and directly come in and pick up versus getting it delivered, just because like stigma, like obviously
Exactly.
stigma's still there for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Some of them don't want to have those conversations with their doctor because they just feel like they're gonna get looked at negatively, so
Right.
they tend to avoid it, and that's why they don't want to sign up for a prescription, or um, even have the extremes of like, oh, I don't want to be on a roster with Health Canada because I might get tracked when I cross the border or something. So it's like,
Really?
yeah, a lot of people are still very like,
Yeah.
iffy on this stage of like cannabis, so
Yeah.
even how it can potentially impact them globally, not
Yeah.
even just in Canada, but
Interesting. Interesting. I mean, I don't want to say ridiculous, but one of the more extreme examples was like there's like credit card statements too. Like,
yeah,
yeah, I don't want this on my credit card. I'm like, who's looking at your credit card statement?
yeah,
Right?
I know,
It's your credit card statement. So like, but yeah, that's super interesting. They're like, yeah, I don't want to pay anything with credit card. They just want to pay with cash. And here's all the things. So yeah, like
yeah,
you're right. That whole stigma is there. So I think there's a few pieces of this, right? There's the one stigma to be one accepted, and then the educational piece to then use this thing to help benefit themselves or whoever else, right? And I think those are the
yeah.
two main things. While it sounds simple, it sounds like there's a lot of work to do though, right?
I find a lot of the I'll say, I don't know if you can say ethnic community, but a lot of like, like your Asian crowd, Muslim crowd,
Right.
Indian, like they have, maybe it's a bigger stigma within those cultures.
Yeah.
'Cause, a lot of my like I'm from the Ismaili community. A lot of the Ismaili community is also like, hey, can I take this? Like kind of whispering to me. I'm like,
Yes.
it's okay. We're talking medicine here. Like,
Yes.
if you're using this for healing purposes, then your culture should be okay with that.
Right.
No
It's the
one would
intention, right?
yeah, exactly. So that still definitely exists, and I think it again, that comes with time.
Yeah.
That comes with time, and a global awareness of what cannabis is and can be.
Right. Right. So I guess to kind of end off my final two questions. So second last question is, do you have any additional nuggets of wisdom for, I guess, pharmacies, medical retail, or recreational retail that's looking to take it to the next level, what they should do? And the next level is however you define, right? It could be operationally, educationally, financially, on a resource side, finding partners. What do you think they should do to take their game to the next level?
I think honestly, the medical community needs to step up their game, and I'm talking like the broad spectrum of medical communities
Right.
need to really step it up, because if not, then we're just going to be accepting of having 19-year-olds sell medical products to patients, and they're not going to have any oversight on that.
Right.
And
So
I
what do you
think,
mean by step up the game? So you mean just do everything more? Like let's educate more people. Let's just get ourselves out there.
yeah, this absolutely needs to get involved in pharmacy, into the dispensing realm, into and there's a lot of different barriers, a lot of different levels that this needs to hit, in terms of like politically it needs to hit into like the legislation and the changes that needed, but even on like almost a systemic basis, it needs to be ingrained into our culture now. It needs to start becoming part of a non-taboo conversation. And if the more medical community got behind this, because they see either the benefit or they see the need to educate on proper cannabis use and safe and effective use, then the better we are as a society for having to use this and safely, right?
Awesome. Wow. definitely heavy hitting. So like, yeah, like I completely agree. Like, I think in this space specifically right now, like you said, in a growing industry, we have a lot of people that are, I don't want to say taking advantage, but taking advantage of the specific situation where maybe they can, in most cases, like, hey, I can make a lot of money by doing this thing, right? Or, hey, my state only allows medical, so I'm going to do medical just for the sake of it until recreational comes and just only do recreational, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that if medical is kind of your priority, it should be your intention to kind of benefit everyone else. And to your point, just do better.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Like it goes even beyond like consumer patient, but even industry of like, I mean, like we need to start implementing this into treatment algorithms. This needs to start getting more clinical data and trials, and the funds that have been exposed in this entire industry over the past, God knows how many years, it is like seems like a waste of money at this point.
Right.
Where did it all go? Right. And I think that's it's a big kind of almost, it's a big like kind of point of like, we should have had a lot more trials done. We should have had this. We should have had that by this time. And maybe this is a point to talk. If anybody listening out there that's not in Canada and they are situated globally, I mean, these are stress points that we have here. Is that, I mean, cannabis could easily be falling into some good treatment algorithms, but we can't do that yet until we have large prospective clinical trials. And we could have gotten there, but again, we spend too much time focusing on the consumer, focusing on recreational use versus medical.
Right. Exactly.
The two need to coexist, right? I mean, you can't have one without the other.
Yeah. Hopefully one day. And I don't want to keep using one day, but hopefully like today, tomorrow, sooner rather than later, right? So,
I think it will. I mean, it's hard not to, since the entire globe is starting to look at cannabis in a different light and starting to implement that into their countries. And
it'll happen. I believe it. So I guess lastly, where can people get in touch if they want to find you, or maybe not necessarily you specifically, but Hybrid Pharm, where you guys located, socials, website, plug everything.
We're here. We are in Westboro. We're in Ottawa. You can search us online, hybridpharm.com. We're also on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. Search us, Hybrid Pharm. And we're here available usually Monday through Saturday, 10 to 5. And you can easily contact us. Our numbers are all on our website. And we're always here for open consultation about any of your medical needs, cannabis needs. And we're always here to lend a helping hand.
Awesome. Well, you heard it here first. If you're in Westboro, you're in Ottawa, soon to be, where is it? Saskatchewan,
Toronto, Saskatchewan,
just all the provinces, where to go to Hybrid Pharm. And then if you own a dispensary, where to go to for some marketing, go to cannabidmarketing.com. Reach out to me if you need a free audit for anything like that. But thank you again for all of your nuggets of wisdom. Like I said, the medical, kind of industry is very, very new. So I really appreciate, kind of sharing some of your insights and all that stuff. But that was another episode of the Dispensary Marketing Podcast, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, Brandon.
All right.